Bearing completely came apart the day after installing it, leaving me stranded on the side of the road because of the bearing coming apart and the brake rotor ending up destroying itself and brake caliper bracket. Very disappointed with parts quality. Hello, my name's EJ, and today I'll be replacing the wheel bearings on my 2015 Nissan Frontier two-wheel drive pickup. I noticed a growling noise. I'm assuming it's on the driver's side. I'll demonstrate how you can kind of tell if you have a wheel bearing going out. And plus I needed to do brakes. So I shopped around, I priced some wheel bearings, and one single wheel bearing from like AutoZone, I think it's a Duralast, is $189 for one wheel bearing hub assembly. It includes the 6 lugs for the wheel. And that was a little bit more than I wanted to spend. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a chance and I'm going to look on Amazon and see what I can find. And so I discovered this company called Autoround, and they have a pair of wheel bearings for $102. Now, as you can see here on the screen, it has 4.5 stars, but only 2 reviews. So two global ratings. And so that's kind of, it's a little bit misleading, because if you look at the one right below, it's the same wheel bearing. Where's the model number? I don't see the model number. Anyways, okay, 5150-64. And the 5150 got me. That's right. But anyways, that was $55.99 for a single wheel bearing hub assembly, 4.4 stars out of 5 with 86 reviews. And I read the reviews, and it's a mixed bag. And so I went to the actual company and looked at their ratings. In the past year, they've had a 5-star rating with plenty of reviews. And I mean, I guess that could be manipulated to some degree, but I don't know. I thought, you know what, for a pair of them for $102, that's almost half the cost of a single wheel bearing hub assembly from AutoZone. So I went ahead and purchased them, and there they are, and they look decent. And like I said, if you go down here to, let's see if I can find it, Autoround. I thought I could see. Okay, there it is. Sold by Autoround. About this seller, Autoround is committed to providing each customer with the highest standard of customer service. Last 12 months, 518 ratings, 90% were 5-star. Okay. Bearing, first one, bearing completely came apart the day after installing it, leaving me stranded on the side of the road because of the bearing coming apart and the brake rotor ending up, let's see, what's he say? Destroying itself and brake caliper bracket, and had to pay to a shop to install a new part so that I could get back on the road. Very disappointed with parts quality. The item did not fix my vehicle. Well, I mean, yeah, I'm going to take a chance. Like I said, if they've had that many ratings, I mean, how can you, this is my logic. How can a company legitimately stay in business if all they sell is junk? There has to be something, there had to be some satisfying customer. This person here, the item did not fit my vehicle, but yet they left 5 stars. Fits like OE. Original equipment, 5 stars. Hi, this is Thomas. I accidentally sent you the wrong part back. Oh my goodness. Let's see what else we got here. I'm trying to find some more people who've reviewed it. I mean, it's kind of funny reading these reviews. Oh, what have I done? Okay, received at a timely fashion manner. 4 stars. Good product, 5 stars. Now this is overall for the company. That's not necessarily for that wheel bearing. I could go back here and let's see. Let's go to the single wheel bearing, which is the same part. I just bought 2 of them in a package deal. And let's read these reviews. Ace, okay. Works well. Best price I could find, and got here quick. At this point, they all come from China, so it's hit or miss, and they are sealed units that can't be greased. Who knows how long that will last, but so far, so good. Reviewed in the United States, August 6, 2023, still going, 4 stars. Worked out great. Great prices and free shipping. Me agrado. Me agrado y es del vehículo. I like it, and it's from the vehicle. Okay. Perfect fit. It fits exactly like OEM with the new wheel speed sensor. I've had about a week on it with no issues. May 29th, 2022. So that's a year old. So anyways, 4.4 out of 5 stars. 4% were a 1 star, 2% or 4% were 2 star, 6% 3 star, 15% 4 star, 71% 5 star. So hey, it's a gamble. But hey, I've had OEM parts come out of the package that were bad, you know. So you know what? Try to save a little money, and you know, I'm a firm believer in the old adage: you get what you pay for. But on this time, I'm going to try it out. So yes, I ordered it from Amazon. I actually have the wheel bearings, and I've inspected one of them. And I'll do an unboxing of one so you can kind of see what we're dealing with. But it actually seemed like pretty good quality, and I ordered them, and 2 days later I had them. And like I said, I also ordered some brake pads. I got some Bosch brake pads that I'm going to put on as well. So without further ado, let's get to the unboxing so you can see what I'm about to install on this truck. And then I'll do a demonstration on before and after. All right, here we go. All right, so this is how they came. Got one in there still. I'm just gonna go ahead and open up this one. I've also got these Bosch brake pads, but the company is Autoround, and we're fixing to find out. So it comes with some gloves. I work in a shop. I wear nitro gloves, so I probably won't be using these. It's heavy. Definitely is heavy. It's actually nicely packaged. I feel a slight film of oil on here, so to avoid rust. It's got the ABS connector. Some dielectric grease on it, maybe. But it looks like it's got everything to line it up good with the existing mounting hardware for the wiring anyways. 5150/64. Nice, smooth. It feels solid, to be honest. I don't know. Looks like it might be all right. I mean, it feels quality. It does. And like I said, but individually they're $55, and I got the pair because this is the reason I got the pair, because typically you want to do them in sets anyways. It can be a little bit misleading on when trying to diagnose a wheel bearing sound. I'm pretty sure it's the driver's side. I haven't actually disassembled it to inspect it to see, but you know what? These were so cheap. I'll go ahead and replace both of them. So here we go. Autoround. We'll find out. All right, so I'm in my wife's truck and getting ready to go install these wheel bearings. But on the way, hopefully you'll be able to hear it, the problem that I'm having, and it's pretty typical. Now, on this truck, it's not that severe. I just know it's doing it. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and take care of this. And I've been needing to put brakes on this truck for a while anyway, so I thought, well, what the heck, I might as well do the wheel bearings too, because since I noticed it, it kind of prompted me to action to go ahead and do the brakes and go ahead and replace the wheel bearings. Kind of need a smooth road to best diagnose this. There, you can kind of hear it coming in now. I'm going about 41, 42 miles an hour. Can you hear that? There's a change. and I'll slightly turn to the right, and the noise stops. That's a perfect indicator there's a wheel bearing going out. It's kind of a low frequency warble sound. I got these dips going through this intersection. I'm trying to get a long stretch. I hope the phone's picking that up. It's very slight. Like I said, it's not too severe. Now, I was out driving last weekend at higher speeds, and it was really prominent. And of course, I did the same thing, the slight turning of the wheel, and I could definitely tell it was a wheel bearing. And it sounds like, hear that as I come to a stop. I mean, it's bad enough to where it's got my attention. And this, like I said, this is my wife's vehicle, so I decided I'm going to go ahead and take care of it. All right, so as you can see, it's definitely time to change the brake pads on my wife's truck here. And back behind here, that's the actual hub that we're fixing to change with these Autoround from Amazon for $102. So it's got 4 bolts holding the hub in. I'm gonna change those out, find out how it goes. So what I'm gonna do first is, I got a piece of wire here. I'm just gonna take the whole caliper off because I gotta take the rotor off to get the hub off. And so I'll wire it up and hang it to the side, and I'll put the new brake pads on after I replace the hub. These are, on this particular model, it's 19 millimeter bolts holding this caliper assembly on. Go ahead and break these loose. I broke them loose. Then I'll use my handy dandy electric ratchet to take these off. Save a little time. Feed this wire. I'll just let it hang right there out the way. Sometimes these rotors will be seized on there a little bit. Got to give a little bit of encouragement. Sometimes they'll have a little bolt that you can take loose. That's not the case on this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray a little bit of this penetrating oil on here. Not too much. I don't want to saturate the rotor or anything. Just a little bit in there. Might creep in there a little bit and help with the disassembly. And I'm going to hit it with a rubber mallet. I'm going to wipe any residue that might be trying to run down. So like I said, I don't want to get it on the rotor. Hold the hand in place to just kind of work it around. It popped loose. That's the rotor. Rotor's in pretty good shape too, so that's good news. You hear it? Hear that? That's the culprit right there. That's why we're changing it. And this is without a load on it, so with a load of the vehicle on it, it's going to be much more pronounced. But that's exactly why I'm replacing it. So that's the opposite end of the mounting bolts for this hub assembly. And I sprayed a little bit of penetrating oil on that to kind of ease it. Usually they'll have Loctite on it. And if this do, well, I'm gonna probably put Loctite on it regardless. But sometimes they're kind of kind of tough to get out. Anyways, here we go. All right, so these mounting bolts here are 17 millimeter. Hook loose easy enough. All right, so before I take these out all the way, I'm gonna go ahead and remove the wiring for the ABS. All right, so what I'm doing here is I'm using these pliers. You got like a little curved opening on the end of the jaw, and that works perfect for depressing the little tab on these electrical connectors. So I'll just gently depress the tab, get on there. You don't want to squeeze too hard. You can actually puncture through the connector with these things. So let's squirt some more lube on it. And what I'm gonna do is actually push it back in and then get my pliers and depress that detent once more and see if it'll go ahead and slide apart. Like I said, you don't want to be, you can't be too careful with this, because like I said, if you're trying to keep the job as simple as possible. There it goes. Just has some dirt in it. That's all it is. I don't know how well you can see that. There's some dirt up inside that connector, and it just works in, just road dust getting in there, and it acts like cement or glue, and you just got to kind of work it loose. But you definitely don't want to damage this stuff, because if you're in an isolated place trying to do this job or whatever, then you're really in a world of hurt. I mean, granted, it's an ABS sensor, it's a wheel speed sensor that can cause some other issues with your vehicle during driving. It's going to set codes, all kinds of stuff. So like I said, a little time, little patience with this can go a long ways and save you a lot of headache later on. Well, anyways, I got that loose. I'm going to clean that up before I plug it into the new one, and then proceed from there. All right, so I got the bolts out. I'm just gonna work it loose. There we go. Don't want to bend that dust shield either, because you definitely want it on there. But if you dent it, you could end up scraping on your rotor and causing a bunch of noise you don't want. Work it out. And there it is. You can kind of hear it. Like I said, under a load, it's a lot more prominent. And that's typical. That is typical. So I'm gonna clean this out a little bit so the new one's not all bound up and rusted in like that. And here we go. So I've got it cleaned up. There's nothing particularly exotic about this. Like I said, this is a 2015 Nissan Frontier two-wheel drive pickup. Like I said, it's nothing exotic. Most makes and models are going to be very similar to this setup. And the only difference is if you had a four-wheel drive, of course, you're going to have the front axle shaft, the CV shaft coming. The actual hub will have a hole through it, a splined hole, and there'll be a splined shaft coming through it, and you'll have to take a nut and washer off this side and kind of push it back. And if you can work around the CV axle, you could probably avoid having to take anything loose. But worst comes to worst, you have to take one of the ball joints loose and pull the whole steering knuckle forward, so you can get to the nuts or the bolts on the back side of the hub and remove it. Like I said, it came off this way, so you'd be pulling away from the splines anyways. But there's nothing special about this. Very similar on all makes and models. So I'm about to install the new $55 Autoround
wheel hub assembly. We're gonna find out. These hubs are the same on either side. So you don't have like a dedicated left or right side. So I'm gonna go ahead and thread this through this dust shield first. Kind of line that up, and then I'm gonna take my bolts here. I'm gonna put some Loctite on them before I go back together. You don't need a whole lot, just a little bit. That's actually probably a little bit more than I'd like to put on there. And this stuff works pretty good. There we go. Ready to install. You want to be sure you have your wires clear. You definitely don't want to be pinching them in here. Just kind of eyeball it. Get your holes lined up. Sometimes this is just a little bit of about some feel. Just kind of feel it. Always start everything by hand. Never just assume that it's started and start tightening it down, because then you'll cross thread it. You'll have a whole nother batch of problems, that you don't want. I didn't bother looking up the torque specs. I'm just going to tighten it down. I've done this enough. I kind of got a feel, but if you're not sure, you might want to get you a torque wrench and refer to the torque specs. I've been doing this long enough to know, and plus I could feel the tightness when I took it loose of what's good. Definitely you want to be sure you keep it clean so you're not getting a false torque tightness in it, because you're crushing some dirt or something up in it. Now I'm just gonna work my ABS wheel speed sensor wiring into the brackets, and guess what? This thing lines up pretty freaking good on here. Something else that's helpful is if you haven't done a lot of this, is to take pictures before you take anything apart, so you can kind of see how it all goes back together. Now, before I put this electrical connector together, I'm going to put a little bit of dielectric grease in there just to help keep things dry. Got this dielectric compound. Just going to put a little dab here. I'll just keep a kind of a moisture-free connection between the actual sensor harness and the vehicle harness. I'll slide these two together. Perfect fit. Autoround, not so bad so far. Not too bad so far. Okay, so one thing I did, remember at the beginning of this, I put some lube around this hub area and around some of the lugs just to help it come off, because it was rusted on a little bit. You want to be sure you dry all that up, and how I do it is use some brake clean. Get it from your local parts store. Just spray some brake clean on there, blow it off with compressed air, and spray some brake clean on a rag, also a clean dry rag, and wipe the surface of the rotor off where the brake pads are going to make connections, so you don't have any oils in there. Perfect fit. Sounds good. Autoround, so far so good. So like I said, I'm also replacing the brake pads on this, and one thing you want to do is you want to compress the caliper pistons into the caliper before you put your new pads on there. Otherwise it'll be too thick and you won't be able to slide it back over the rotor. And they make a tool that kind of resembles a brake pad. It has like a little hand turned crank on it to push those pistons in, or you can do it like what I'm going to do. I'm just going to use some channel locks, and I'm just going to leave the old brake pads in there and squeeze it, and it'll compress the pistons into the caliper. And like I said, you want to do this with your your old brake pad's still in there. So obviously you don't want to put these jaws on your new brake pads. Easy peasy. All right, so I just wanted to, I've already finished putting the new wheel bearing and hub assembly on the passenger side. The driver's side's complete. But I just wanted to point out a few things because I am doing brakes at the same time. I already showed you about compressing the pistons into the caliper. And there are a few things that you want to be aware of. Sometimes when you compress those pistons into the caliper, you may get some brake fluid dripping on the floor from the master cylinder. And why that is because as these brake pads wear, the fluid level goes down in the master cylinder, and it lowers the level. So whenever you and some people over time may have added brake fluid to it thinking it was low, and actually it was an indication that their brake pads have been worn thin. And so when you compress that, if that's happened, you may get some leakage. It's completely normal. There's nothing to worry about. Just after you've completed the job, be sure to check your master cylinder level. And this is critical. I might even stick my face up in here because this is important. When you let your vehicle down after you've replaced the front brake pads, do not start it, do not put it in gear until you have pumped those brakes, because there will be a gap between the pads, the pistons, and the rotor. And you want to fill that gap, because otherwise your brake pedal is going to go to the floor as you try to fill that gap. And if you have it running and try to throw it in gear, you're not going to be able to stop. Always, always pump your brakes before you ever start it after you do a front brake job or rear brake job or anything. Just pump your brakes to make sure that that fluid, the hydraulic part of your system has filled in the mechanical gap that's going to be left after replacing the pads. Don't forget, that's important. All right, so as you can see, we have this anti-vibration clip here. And so you want to remember that, take that out. And it's always a good thing too, whenever you're doing any kind of work like this, do one side at a time. Don't take it all apart at once, so you have a reference to go by. And so this will go on, you'll keep this part, and then you can go ahead and remove your pads. And you can see these are pretty thin. Luckily they hadn't gotten into the rotor yet. So there's that. And go ahead and take this part out. Now this kit comes with all the, and see the inboard pad's not quite as wore as the outboard pad. And that's kind of, you got to watch that, because as you can see, the wear indicator is on the inboard pad and it hadn't reached the wear indicator yet. But the outboard pads are pretty thin. So just because you're not hearing anything doesn't mean your brakes aren't worn out. So I'm going to go ahead and replace these with these new Bosch pads. Also, these retainer clips, the kit come with new clips, so I'm going to replace those as well. So I'm just going to pull those out, make sure there's no trash up in here. Go ahead and pull those out. And I've got my new ones right here. I'll go ahead and slide them in place. You want to fit the front part in first before you cinch that down, just to make sure. Here's the new pad. Here's the old pad. Now this is the inboard, and it wasn't quite as wore. But it's probably, I don't know, what, 30% worn, maybe, thereabout. But the outboard pad is over 50% worn. See that? So get your orientation, and these just slip right in there, just like that. Same thing here. Just go right in there just like that. And then that little wire, we'll put that little wire back. There's a little hole in the metal backing of the brake pads that fits in just like that. Now, the reason I'm actually taking the time to record this part, I know this was about the wheel bearings replacement, but I just wanted to point out this right here. These are the slides. They're lubricated slides, and your kit will come with a little grease packet, and the grease does not go on any of these components here. It only goes on these, and see that pops right out. And I'm going to clean that, and I'm going to put the new grease on it. So I'm going to go ahead and pop both of them out. All right, and I'm going to put new grease on them. All right, so this is the little grease packet, and I've cleaned the pins up, these slide pins. Just going to put a little on here. It doesn't take a whole lot. Squeeze some on there. I may spread it around a little bit so it's kind of even all the way around. Just put some fresh grease on there, and it's a good thing to do this because then you'll know if there's any problems here. And I'll just slide that in there. Now there'll be a little grease that'll pooch out. There's a little rubber boot that goes on there and it pops over that. So I'll wipe that with a rag to get that excess grease off of it, and I'll dry it out with some brake clean. Same thing with the top. Just put a little bit on there. Spread it around. And slide it in. All right, be sure to clean off your excess grease. All right, like I said before, this isn't a particularly exotic setup. I mean, this is a Nissan 2015 Nissan Frontier. Nothing special here. But sometimes they'll have a little longer bolt that goes in here that actually rides all the way up in there. But this has two little short bolts, and then it threads into the actual pin. And as you can see, I put Loctite on that. I'll thread in the top one first, so that way it's not trying to flop down on me when I try to start the bottom one. And remember, always start everything by hand first. Make sure it's started before you ever put a tool on it. Otherwise, you'll cross thread it. And I'm going to tighten these down by hand with a wrench instead of a power tool. I've had some experience with Japanese steel. It'll break fairly easily. So I like to feel these when I tighten these up. In my shop, we have several torque specs. We have finger tight, we have wrist tight, we have elbow tight, we have shoulder tight. And then comes the cheater pipe. All right, cheater pipe tight. And these, you're going somewhere between wrist and elbow tight. Probably a little bit more on the elbow side. All right, put the tires on it, pump the brakes, and start her up and test drive it. All right, tires back on it, pump the brakes, and let's go test drive. Try out these old $100 for the pair Autoround wheel bearing hub assemblies from Amazon. And no, I'm not sponsored. Wished I was, but I'm not. Here we go. All right, so I'm back in the truck. First thing I'm gonna do is pump the brakes. It'll feel like you got a pedal, but you got to make sure you close that gap on that you created when you compress the pistons into the caliper, because there's going to be a gap in there. And although it feels like you got a pedal, you can feel that, start it, put it in gear, and you ain't got no brakes, and you're taking off, and you could hurt somebody, hurt yourself. It's important. Pump the dang brakes. If you're not familiar with doing brake jobs, pump the brakes. All right, so here we go. It's holding. All right, so what I'm gonna do first, I gotta shut the shop down, and then we'll go on a final test drive with these new Autoround individually $55 wheel bearing hub assemblies, or for the pair on Amazon, $102. I did it, I bought them. We're gonna find out. They felt pretty good though. I mean, first impression was darn good. I don't got no lights on, so evidently the ABS is good. The circuitry is good, but I've gotta shut the shop down, and then we'll take this booger out on the road. But I wanted this segment of the video, most importantly, why? To pump the brakes before you ever put it in gear. It'll feel like you got a solid pedal. Don't trust it. Pump that rascal several times before you ever start it and put it in gear. All right, let me close the shop down. All right, so got the shop shut down. I listened to some of the playback on the first test drive, and I realized you can't really hear what I was hearing. So this is after the repair, and this is going to be more of a reactionary thing, I guess, just to get my opinion on it. Like I said, the initial out of the box, they felt great. They felt like super high quality. See if I noticed any noises. This road I'm fixing to go on, it's fairly smooth. Not a lot of traffic out. Not like it was earlier. So far so good. I don't hear anything. Like I said, I read some of the reviews. Some of them said they had problems after a week, but this was on Autoround's total product line. This was the overall company reviews I was reading. Although I did see some on the individual wheel bearing that they complained about it. A lot of them were just, they complained about Amazon shipping. They didn't get the package, which that has nothing to do with the quality of the product. And I'm gonna give this a shot. I kept the old wheel bearings just in case, you know, because one of them was actually good. The passenger side, it wasn't really anything wrong with it, but I went ahead and changed them both out. But I saved it just in case there's any issues, and I can put that put that back on, and maybe get a refund, or if necessary. I'm hoping it's not. I hope they work out good. It'll be a good find if I could get good quality wheel bearings, 2 hubs for $100 as opposed to 1 hub for almost $200. You know, and that's not even factory. That's a aftermarket replacement from AutoZone. It was $189 for a Duralast, I believe, and then AC Delco on up, Dorman, I think, over $200. So I got both wheel bearing hub assemblies for $100, and hopefully it works out. I hope there's not an issue, but if there is, I'll let you know. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Peace. Pump those brakes.